last week we basically read through about 3 or 4 chapters, or how many it was. We're kind of going to look back over those and see if we can catch a little bit of an idea of what those chapters were all about. Who did we read about? What last week? Who did we read about?
One of his friends.
One of his friends.
We actually read about 2 of his friends.
Yeah, 2 of his friends. How much? Where did these friends live? Where did they come from? What was his name? What was the first one's name?
Eliphaz or Eliphaz, is that right?
Yeah, ever how you say it? Eliphaz or Eliphaz? I don't have any idea how you'd say that in Hebrew or what. Just looking back, what was chapter 3 about? What was chapter 3 about?
Job was sorry that he was born.
All right. Job wanted to never had been born, wanted to die, or confessed his sin, or was weary from the trials of life. So which one of those did he do? I know Gary just said it, but which one of those did he do? Somebody tell me, besides Gary. He wished
I was cheating, I was looking.
Wished he had never been born, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's another one in there that
he was weary from the trials.
Yeah, he was also weary from the trials of life. That's really what the whole really what Job is. When all this affliction hit him and everything, it didn't take long for him to go to having real wearisome ideas about living, right?
Yeah.
About his life. He was tired all of a sudden. Just if you just lost all your holdings and all your family, and except your wife, and you had lost your health, you had broke out in all kinds of serious kinds of sores and everything. It'd be pretty miserable, and that's all of a sudden you're in some heavy trials. You know, how do you hold on to your faith, during those trials? And so Job's friends come over to help him out. And these guys they're religious type guys, as well as Job, and they come over to help him out. Now, in chapter 4, Eliphaz is saying Job's fear was he had been cut off from God's righteousness. Job had made someone mad because of a business deal. What do you think? He had a lot of business going on. Why was Job having all these problems?
According to Eliphaz?
According to Eliphaz, yeah.
He was being punished by God.
All right. Well, look at 6:9. Let's see what 6:9's verse 6:9 in chapter 4. 6 and 9.
You want us to read 6 and 9?
Yeah, you want to read it?
I will. It's not your...
Chapter 4, verse 6.
Just 6 and 9, or 6 through 9?
6 through 9.
Is not your fear of God your confidence, and the integrity of your ways your hope? Remember now, whoever perished among being innocent, or where were the upright destroyed? According to what I have seen, those who plowed in equity, and those who sowed trouble harvested. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they come to an end.
What is Eliphaz saying here to Job? What's verse 6 say? It says, "Is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy ways?" What does he mean there? Who's he? He's fear of God is what he's talking about. He's not, and fear of God is not necessarily like frightened
Like his respect
fear. It's a respect
for his
type.
power.
It's a respect type fear, and so he's saying, "Is not this thy faith, thy confidence, thy hope, and uprightness of thy ways? Remember, I pray thee, whoever perisheth, being innocent, or where were the righteous cut off?" So what's he saying there? Remember, I pray thee, whoever perisheth, being innocent. What does that mean?
Is he basically telling him that someone who did good things wouldn't have this stuff done to him?
He's reminding Job to remember all these good things you've done and all these good things that's happened to you. If you were innocent, that wouldn't have passed away, right? So he's saying the reason you got all these problems is because you have done something against God. But had he?
No.
No.
Not according to God. He hadn't done anything against him. Now, and he's saying because of this, whatever you've done, your righteousness has been cut off. Even as I have seen they that plow iniquity. What is that? They that plow iniquity. You ever see anybody plowing iniquity these days? Planting seeds of, you're plowing and planting seeds of turmoil and trouble and problems, you know. There's some folks just can't leave well enough alone. They got to go and throw a little fertilizer on a problem, right? They sow wickedness and reap the same. So he's saying if you get outside of God and you lose your faith, then you're going to not only sow but reap wickedness. Hello. By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils they are consumed. So what's he saying is going to happen to Job or to someone who has done wicked and cut themselves off from God?
He'll destroy him.
God himself is going to destroy him. So now Job did, let's look at, let's go down to chapter 5, verse 1. Autumn, you want to read that one?
Cry for help, but will anyone answer you? Which of the angels will help you? Just verse 1?
Just verse 1. So where's he going to go for help?
To the angels.
But what are they going to do? According to Eliphaz, what they going to do?
Turn away.
They ain't going to help him, are they? So Eliphaz is saying that because Job, he believes that Job has sinned, his righteousness is cut off, and that he's not going to be able to have any help no matter who he calls on. You know, that'd be kind of putting it out there. You're just a hopeless case unless you admit you've sinned, right? Now read 6 and 7, chapter 5, 6 and 7. John, you want to read those?
For distress does not grow out of the soil, and trouble does not sprout from the ground. But mankind is born for trouble, as surely as sparks fly upward.
All right. What are some other words for that word stress that John read?
Affliction.
Affliction in the King James. Anybody else got a different word besides distress? Although affliction or distress cometh not forth of the dust, neither does trouble spring out of the ground. He's saying your problems didn't happen just because you was here. You know, the trouble didn't come out of the ground. You got this problem because you've done something wrong. Yet man is born into trouble. What does that mean? We're born into trouble. Are we born into trouble here?
Well, we're born sinners. We'll be sinners till the day we die.
Yeah.
That's trouble, isn't it? You're born in that's not. But what he's talking about there is not so much that, but these troubles and trials, they are tribulations and trials. And you got to keep in mind that they don't have Christ as their mediator. And we'll see in Job, he cries out for a mediator later on. But at this point, they don't have Christ as a mediator, so they don't have too many places to turn. He's either go direct to God and his own reasoning, or reasoning under God. That's reason you gotta learn how to reason and to figure out things under God's guidance. But all Job's, he didn't have any hope, and he's born into the troubles just as sure as sparks fly up off a fire. You built campfires, right? Mm-hmm. And you throw a piece of wood on there every time. It never fails, does it? And so Eliphaz is saying, you got these problems just because you was born into them, and you're afflicted from them. And it still comes down to these are just trials and tribulations. And he's just outlining all of those trials and tribulations. Now, over in verse 8, there, what does verse 8 say? Buddy, you got that one?
On 5,
Uh-huh.
I would seek into new God, and unto God would I commit my cause.
Now, what's he saying in that verse? What's Eliphaz advised him to do?
Ask God for mercy. Yeah.
Yeah, go to God and pray for mercy, right? So he's saying you got this problem and you're going to have to go and confess it to God. That to God and unto God would I commit my cause. He would if Eliphaz is speaking, if I'm in your place, I'm going to go and confess my sin to God. That's what he's saying. Now let's look at chapter 6, verse 1 says, "But Job answered and said, Oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed." What in the world does that mean? What's he asking for there?
Them to tell him what to do about his grief. It's been them to weigh it, explain to him what he needs to do about his grief, I guess.
I think you're pretty close. Somebody else, what do you think? You're pretty close to it. Oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed and my calamity laid in the balances together. What is weighed in balances? What is weight and balances?
It's like scales.
Scales. Well, what do you use scales for?
Waste it.
You're going to weigh some corn over here and over here. Why do you weigh them?
Yeah.
To get a fair exchange, right? You want a fair, and so Job he's looking for what? A fair evaluation of God. That's what he's looking for. These if all of my troubles and all of everything I've done in my life, my bads and my goods, all I want them to do is weighed up on a fair scale. That's what he's saying. If they were just weighed fairly, I'm happy. So my question here is Job asking for death or fair judgment?
Fair judgment.
Fair judgment. Now, this next little thing that I put out here on the side that says 6:6 doesn't have much to do with the lesson. I'm just kind of curious about something. How long have mankind been eating eggs? How long you think we've been eating eggs?
A long time.
Long
A
time.
long time. Do you ever think about people 3,500 and 4,000 years ago was eating eggs? They eat eggs back then. That'd be, Job was written, what, in 1500s BC? This is 2000 AD, so that's 3,500 years. Read verse 6 there. Gary, you want to read that one?
Can flavorless food be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of any egg, of an egg?
Job has eaten some eggs. Is there any taste in the white of an egg?
Yeah. And egg whites are pretty flavorless.
And he had to have a little salt to kind of flavor it up with, you know.
I can't.
Yeah, you just have to eat
I just have to eat the eggs.
just eat the eggs without.
But
But
I eat yolks, so.
yeah, he's talking about this actually there. I thought if you look and see what he's comparing all this stuff, but I just thought it's kind of interesting that he's eating eggs, and we've been eating eggs, and it was doesn't have much to do with anything except that they're flavorless. And if you don't put a little salt on a white or do something to doctor a white of an egg up, that it's just bland.
Yeah.
And so if you just when he's going through there, and he's talking about in verse 4, he's talking about the terrors of God do set themselves in array against me, and then he's talking about because of that all this blandness stuff. But down here in verse 8, it says what? Gary Jackson, you want to do that one?
Oh, that I might have my request, that God would grant me the thing that I long for.
What was he longing for?
Peace.
Now, what was he longing for? Verse 2, what was he longing for?
Fair judgment.
Fair judgment. When he's longing for the judgment as to whether on his situation. He said, if I could get some fair judgment, these sores will go away. And all these problems I've got right now, they'll all go away. Yeah, 6 verse 14 and 15. Daniel, you want to read those?
14 and 15.
Uh-huh.
To him who is afflicted kindness should be shown by his friend, even through his forsakes the fear of the Almighty. My brothers have dealt deceitfully, like a brook, like the streams of the brooks that pass away.
Yeah, that's not a complete sentence there, but how does Job answer his friends here?
That they should sympathize with the situation.
It says, to him that is afflicted, pity in the King James verse should be shown. What'd yours say, Daniel? 14. To him
To
that
him who is afflicted kindness should be shown.
kindness should be shown.
My explanation here says Job complained about his treatment by his friends. As their suffering friend, he should have received loyalty or loving kindness from them. So I think
He was kind of put out with his friends, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of put out with his friends. Then, so if your friends are telling you all the bad things you've done, is he really helping you?
No.
He's not, telling you need to do this and you need to do that. So what would have been a better way for his friends to help him here? Can you think of a better way that you might that these three friends come over? They come over to help him and everything. What would be some better ways that they could have helped him?
they could have been encouraging rather than discouraging.
They could have offered to scrape his sores for him.
Well, they actually judged him too, didn't they? They judged him that the only reason you're having these problems is because you sinned. you know, and so they placed a judgment on him. Instead of, and then not only that, we'll see in a minute, they didn't listen to him when he said, hey, I didn't do all this. Chapter 7, I don't have anything down there on chapter 7, but we're going to look at that. My little caption up there says, Job excuses his desire of death by representing his extreme restlessness. What does it look at verse 4? It says, Norman, you want to read verse 4?
When I lie down, I think, and how long before I get up? Before I get up. The night drags on, and I toss till dawn.
What's he going through there? He's having a restless night, isn't he?
Yeah.
Not just one. He's having a bunch of restless, sleepless nights. And he's pretty miserable. And so he's
really miserable if you read the next verse.
Huh?
I said read the next verse, you can tell he's really miserable.
Okay, read.
Oh, God.
Read verse 5 there.
My body is covered with maggots and scabs. My skin breaks open, oozing with pus.
Yeah, all them sores is covered up with worms. He's got wormy. He's wormy now, and he's
Makes me feel.
that Job is in a big time bad way, right?
Oh, man.
His days, they're moving swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and they're spent how? Just like hopeless days. If you didn't have any hope in your life, if you didn't have hope in the future, you know, like you got plans, we all got plans for next week, tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
If your hope was none of that's going to happen and none of it's going to be true and I can't do none of it, how would you feel if you didn't have any hope? He's hopeless. All right. Now let's see, chapter 8. Let's look down at chapter 8. 9 through 14. Okay, John, you got those?
Since we were born only yesterday and know nothing, our days on earth are but a shadow. Will they not teach you and tell you and speak from their understanding? Does papyrus grow where there is no marsh? Do reeds flourish without water? While still uncut shoots, they would dry up quicker than any other plant. Such is the destiny of all who forgot God. The hopes of the godless will perish. His source of confidence is fragile. What he trusts in is a spider's web.
How much strength's in a spider's web?
Not much.
Not much strength in a spider's web. It'll hold a spider a little while, but how long does a spider's web last? How often does a spider have to rebuild his web? Every day, every night, doesn't he? Rebuilds his spider's web to catch his food. So there's not a lot of endurance and a lot of strength in a spider's web. What is in verse 9, and know nothing because our days upon earth are a shadow. What's he talking about there? We know nothing. What's he talking about? This is Bildad talking, not Job. What's he talking about? Telling Job something.
He's just saying life's short, isn't he?
Life's short. Man's ignorant. If he know nothing, that's ignorance, right? If you don't know anything, it's like, shall not they teach thee and tell you? Shall these things not teach you some stuff and tell you some stuff? Can the rush grow up without mire? He's saying you got to have a little soil stuff for something to grow in, and if the human life don't have anything substance, it can't grow. That's really what he's comparing to. He's basically telling Job, and says, you know, he's in verse 13 says, "So are the paths of all that forget God." He's saying the reason you're having these things can't live without all their substance, and you can't live without God. And that's what he's. And what's a hypocrite says, "And the hypocrite shall perish." So he's saying, Job, you're a hypocrite, and if you don't get some changing done, you're going to perish. And he's probably, he don't have any, he's putting it in such a way that where Job would have no hope at all. He'd just perish, be gone for eternity. Whose hope shall be cut off, and whose trust shall be as a spider's web. So if you're trusting, and your trust is not any stronger than a spider's web, how good is it? What is trusting God? Is our trusting God the strength of a spider's web?
No.
Our faith in God? Each one of us has to evaluate our faith. You know, are we strong in faith, trusting God for our existence? And this guy Bildad, he's saying if you don't do that, you'll be cut off. If you just got a weak faith, you're going to be cut off. So Job has two friends here. Now, they're both done what? These are the two we read about so far.
Blamed him.
They blame Job for Job's. They just know that Job has done something against God, right? It's caused him to have all these problems. Now, that was 3,500 years ago. What do we blame somebody else? We have problems. How do we treat our problem? We don't have any. We deny we have them. Sometimes we stick our head in the ground like the ostrich does, but we really have problems. Now,
I used to live my life by the principle, ignore the problem, it'll go away.
ignore
The problem
them.
is it does go away. It doesn't always go away the right way.
Yeah.
If you do ignore a problem, you said it goes away. What really happens if you ignore it? You gotta, let's say, what's a problem? Somebody give me a problem. I don't know. What problem? Sickness? You know, we got sickness. Alcohol's a problem. Smoking's a problem. All these, health issues. Those are problems. And if I'm not looking to pick on them. I never have drank, but I did smoke and like that, and I'm not condemning anybody that does that because I know that it's tough to get rid of that and tough to get off of all that. But if we inherit a emphysema because we smoke so much, whose fault is that? Is that God's? You gotta, if you put things in your body, or if you can poison your body with food, you can eat the wrong food, there's all kinds of things you can do. But if we do things that cause our problems, who are we going to blame?
Myself.
Who should we blame, or who do we blame a lot of times?
Who do we blame?
A lot of times we blame somebody else.
We ever blame God for our problems?
I never have.
You never have. Well, good for you.
No, I figured whatever I've done, whatever I've done, because of me.
It's because of something you did back there
Yeah.
30 years ago. If we do things that's harmful to our bodies and to our families and to all of our stuff back down here, we think that it'll go away. But those things just kind of have a way of hanging on. And they're a burden to us all of our lives. So the earlier we can draw ourselves and get ourselves pointed in godliness and doing all the things, and we're not condemned for eternal hell because we did those things. We're condemned from eternal hell for what? Not for doing what? Confessing Jesus Christ, believing in Jesus Christ as our Savior. Now, if we're saved, we still have these problems. Job had these problems. He didn't really do anything to justify them. This is a kind of a war between Satan and God. But Job had these problems, and we can see in these problems, these guys are saying you done something wrong. That's the reason you got these problems. Now, we have problems because we did something that was harmful to us. Whether we done them in ignorance or what, we do it. We pick up later what was going on. Whatever we done down here bothers us at 65 or 70 or 50 or like that, and whatever we do at 50 bothers us at 70 or 80 or like that. It shows up later. But what if you do good things for yourself? Good things for your body, good things for your friends, good things for your spouses and your children. What if you do good things at 20?
Then you'll live to be 105.
Then well, it's not about longevity of life. It's when the earlier you start doing good, healthy things for your body, then the better it is in the long run for your body.
You have a better quality of life.
Now, in our case, we have a spiritual body, right? So if we feed our spiritual body, let's say that I become a Christian at 8 years old, and I know I was saved. I have no doubt about in my mind that I was, that I was saved when I was 8 years old out under a hackberry tree. Now, if I feed that spiritual body pornography, or if I feed that spiritual body biblical studies, which is going to be the best? The biblical.
Yeah.
If you follow pornography studies, and that's all around, right? You can buy books that tells you how to do all kinds of things, and you can, and some people practice those things and do a lot of that stuff. But which is going to be the most healthy for your spiritual life? Biblical. So if we doing things when we're young that affects our body, we feel the aches and pains of that. So if we do things as we're a young Christian, now you can be a Christian like Gary at 55 or 50, whatever, up like that, or you can be a Christian at 8. So what do you do when you're either way, you're a babe in Christ when you start out, right?
Yeah.
When you start out as a Christian, you're a babe in Christ. So what do you do at that time to help your spiritualness?
You begin to read and study.
Yeah. And the more you read, the more you study, and the more you convert your old ways to following the biblical ways. It talks about the food we eat, it talks about the stuff we drink, it talks about all of those things. Then the more healthy our spiritual life is going to be. But what else is going to happen? Our bodies are going to be healthier too. And we can do things that harms us even after we're a Christian. We can keep hanging on to some stuff, and that's still, but we're going to pay the price. We can be Christians for 10 or 20 years and we can hang on to some stuff that's non-Christian. But it's better for us if we leave that alone and grow and go on. It would be better if a person could quit smoking, even if he had smoked 60 years, and he could quit smoking. It would be his body's going to feel better on down the road every how long he lives. It takes about a year to get all that, or so, to get all that out of your system and everything.
Do you know they say there's something worse than smoking?
There's a lot of things worse than smoking, probably.
No, but they've come up with a conclusion that sitting and watching TV for 6 to 7 hours a day is actually worse than smoking.
Well, you know, since you mentioned that, when I was thinking about a bunch of this stuff, I didn't think about that. But if you spend 6 or 7 hours watching the TV and you spend 6 minutes studying the Bible, which one are you going to get more in?
TV.
You're going to whatever's on the TV, right?
Yeah.
And whatever, and especially if you're watching some of the wildest shows in the world, my mind don't even imagine all that stuff that's going on TV now. There's how many TV programs is on if you got Dish Network or some of those networks, every one of them's got all kinds of different movies and all kinds of different shows. It was 1,000 or so channels on each one of them, you know, and you probably got 200, 300 channels. It's not too bad of stuff.
Yeah.
But you probably got 600 or 700 channels that's really bad stuff. Some of it even worse than others. So if you're putting more time in TV than you are in Bible study, what does that say? What kind of an effect does that have on our daily lives? The things that we do. Job's dealing with these trials and stuff and all these tribulations, but he don't have television. But we do, and we can go that way, and we can go this way, we can go God's way. I hope everybody here chooses God's way. I know that made a difference in my life because some of my friends, one of them become a cattle rustler and wound up doing all kinds of bad stuff and everything like that. And he was a next door neighbor half a mile away. It was the first house half a mile away. There's not too many of those kind of things either anymore. We're a little closer than that. But he never has come to church or done anything, even now. And he's had all kinds of problems in his life. But he'd never go to church with us or anything. When I was a kid, I went to church. He didn't go to church. You know, he wouldn't go. And
He didn't wind up in prison.
he did. And had a miserable, not a very happy life. He turned more money than I did and that sort of thing. Well, lost it all, had faster money, lost it all, all that kind of stuff. But he's turned out to be really kind of a miserable guy, and he still don't do anything. Now, chapter 9, 1 through 3. Job is going to answer Bildad here. Bildad just accused him of being a hypocrite, right? Saying he's a godly man and he really ain't. That's what a hypocrite is. And we say we're Christian, but we really ain't. And our actions shows what we really are, right? We might front up a little while, but your actions is going to show in the long run what you really are. Job answered. What is Mike? You want to read 1 through 3 there?
Then Job answered, "In truth I know this is so, but how can a man be in the right before God? If one wished to dispute with him, he could not answer him once in 1,000 times."
All right. As Job said, now if a man debates with God, what will be the result? What will be the result of debating with God?
Yeah.
In the long run, it's going to be bad. How do you debate against God?
Really can't really
You
see
don't.
how you could.
You don't.
Well, what is a debate? You have two guys or gals, whichever two people, and you have one pro and one con on a subject. So we know that God is holy and just, and we know that man's born in sin, right? So how does man debate against God? What do we do or say or what that is like debating against God?
Doing things which we try to okay in our mind that it's right, but really to God it's really wrong.
We know we should do something right, and we do the opposite. And that kind of like debating. That's the guy that's in the debate. You kind of just choose which subject you want to do, and it don't mean you're being bad or good. But in life, it's a life situation, and so we really debate against God in our actions. He says do this, and we do that. Now, if we contend with him, he cannot answer him 1 of 1,000. We can't go up against God and even be able to. God got 10,000 good quality answers to maybe us having one and good quality answer. He is wise in heart and mighty in strength, who hath hardened himself against him and hath prospered. If you've hardened your heart against God and you're doing the things that you know you shouldn't be doing, you're going to pay the price. And that's all in the world. And God, he has the power to remove the mountains, and they know not, they're not doing nothing. Let's see. Just scanning down there. God doeth great things past finding out, yea, and wonders without numbers. And we're a human. We're going to fight against this, Job is acknowledging and telling his friends that God is the omnipotent God and that he is the sovereign God in this chapter. Behold, he taketh away who can hinder him, and who will say unto him, what doest thou? God can take us away. He's the sovereign God. But God, Job's says in 15 says, whom though I were righteous, yet would I not answer, but I would make supplication to my judge. How do we make supplications to God? Through prayer. So how do we find out what when we're having these trials and things, how do we find out from God what we ought to be doing? Through prayer. We also have something else that's available to us that wasn't available to Job, and that's this. Back to the Bible. There's nothing in here that's going to tell us that's going to hurt us or harm us. We may not like it, from a human standpoint, we may not like it, but if we conform to the teachings of the Bible, then we are going to be less at war with God. in our actions, our attitudes, and everything. We're going to get more in harmony, and when we do that, we're going to have more peace of mind and tranquility of life.